everybody.
Hi, guys. Well, from beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up today, we're going to talk about sort of creating a safe space for religion.
Well, yeah. Or we're going to be talking about, like, there is a line at which free practice of religion
Right.
and, pluralistic society kind of bump into each other.
Yeah.
And that line gets a little squishy sometimes, and we're going to talk about, like, that.
Yeah. But we're going to be all over. It's a global discussion.
Oh, my gosh.
Today.
You
We're gonna be
guys-
all over the map.
We're international over here.
Ugh, goodness.
Here in Salt Lake
gracious.
City.
So anyway,
Yeah.
before we get to all of that, Dan,
Yeah.
turns out that maybe if you're an LGBTQIA Catholic in Wisconsin,
Which I am.
you may not want to die
Oh, dear.
and have your funeral held at your local diocese,
Oh, no.
or have your local priest do it, your local parish, whatever.
Sure.
Because the Diocese of Madison has reminded queer Catholics that the church can shun them not just in life, but also in death. Yes, indeed. A email went around recently that made sure that priests were considering whether the funeral service was being offered for a person in a, quote, notorious homosexual relationship.
Oh, a notorious one. I will admit, I know a few gays in some notorious homosexual relationships.
Holy shit.
And then I know some in some very lovely gay relationships.
Yeah.
So, maybe he likes the gays that are in nice relationships.
No,
And it's just those.
no.
Oh.
These are some of the questions that he wants the priest to consider. Was the deceased or the partner a promoter of the gay lifestyle? Did the deceased give some signs of repentance before death?
I see. I see.
He's looking for something.
Can I just reach out to the gay Catholics of the world and just say, they want you to choose.
Oh, yeah.
They specifically are telling you, leave the damn church.
Yeah.
They don't want you there.
Right. Also, supposedly, the deceased's surviving partner should not have any public or prominent role at any ecclesiastical funeral rite or service.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. Because, the most bereaved person at the funeral should not be the one on display.
In fact, the grieving partner and the same-sex marriage shouldn't even be referenced in any liturgical booklet, prayer card, homily, sermon, talk by the priest, deacon.
Right. Of course not.
So I think what people should maybe just consider here is, why are you wanting a Catholic service?
Yeah.
If you're LGBTQIA, right?
Yeah.
And dead. So,
Well, if you're dead, why do you want anything? You're dead.
right.
I don't know how you could want things.
Let's see. Catholic critics, in fact, who are outraged about this, say that the bishops are unfairly focused on the queer Catholics while paying less attention to other relationships not approved by church doctrine, including divorces, or people who are remarried without an annulment, or people who have sex before marriage. These people are not being treated the same way.
Right, of course not. Yeah, if it is a straight couple who are quote unquote living in sin and one of them dies,
Right.
oh yeah, that boyfriend, that girlfriend can totally not only be there but talk at the funeral and blah blah blah.
Oh, yeah.
They can be prominent.
And this critic goes so far to say that they must also ban anyone who does not care for the poor or care for the environment.
Oh, sure.
And anyone who supports torture. For those are church teachings, too.
Yeah. I'm sure they got no problem with like full-on criminals having all the rights and services.
Yeah, probably.
But
So they love those. But a criminal, somebody who's done some murdering,
some bad behaving,
some stealing. They get that nice little deathbed confessional thing.
Hopefully.
And if they get a chance for it, right, where they have a last chance to be repentant, right?
Yeah.
But you cannot this person in a same-sex relationship, they want them to do the same repenting,
right? Yeah,
which is
I
sick
repent
and demented
of my love,
right,
for another human being,
right?
Because Lord knows if there's one thing Jesus hates, it's loving other humans.
No, he never said anything about that I know of.
He didn't even comment on it. All right. Well, I'm going to move to Israel.
Oh?
The promised land.
Oh, really?
Of God's chosen people.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard this before.
They have it's the oldest running newspaper in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Haaretz. There's two A's next to each other. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Okay.
Has come out with an in-depth report on the veracity of the Old Testament.
Oh, really?
Doing what they claim is, quote, they say. So here's what they say. Despite feverish searching with scripture in one hand and cutting-edge technology in the other, evidence backing the Bible remains elusive. They've been looking for evidence for the truthfulness of the stories in the Bible.
Okay.
Strangely, and our listeners will be shocked to learn this, they can't find it.
Wait. No, there's no evidence?
No evidence.
For which stories?
Well,
which stories are they talking about?
So they're talking about the creation story. They're talking about a whole bunch of things. But like, for instance, no evidence of the events described in the book of Genesis has ever been found. No city walls have been found at Jericho from the appropriate era that could have been toppled by Joshua or otherwise. The stone palace uncovered at the foot of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem could attest that King David had been there. Or it might belong to another era entirely, depending on who you ask. So, what they're copping to is that, and what they say is, these are fables. These are stories.
Right.
Many of them lifted from other traditions.
Right. But stories that are designed to help us live better lives.
Well, I wouldn't say so, but
I've heard many people say so, Dan.
If you twist them a lot and you shape them and you mold them,
leave parts out.
You use your heat gun and then you melt them down a little bit, and then you reshape them and stuff, and you try and cut out a few things. Then maybe,
I don't know, Jonah in the well.
I mean, what wonderful lessons we learned from that.
What about Lot's wife and what was the dude Job?
Job, sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's New Testament, so I think Israel.
Job isn't it?
Who
had all the boils?
Oh, that's Job. I don't know. Maybe Job. No, Job's Old Testament. I don't. Who the fuck cares? It's a stupid book. It's a really stupid book.
It's hard to keep all the fables in the right books.
Anyway, as part of the context for this, I actually don't read Hebrew. I don't know if you know this, so I didn't go to the direct source. I have to trust Newsweek's covering of this. But they brought out a Pew study that's interesting that talks about how Americans view the Bible. And
the literalists.
Well,
is that what they're getting to?
They're talking about that, and it's interesting because about 36% of Christians in the U.S. said the Bible should not be taken literally.
Oh,
while 40% said it is the Word of God, and only 24% of Americans said that that's not just Christians, that's Americans on the whole, I think, said that the Holy Book was, quote, the actual Word of God and is to be taken literally.
Oh, nice.
So apparently, only 35% read it once a week, or at least once a week, and 45% seldom or never do. Oh. I'm guessing many of those 35% are lying. They don't actually read the scriptures. But yeah, apparently...
Why would they lie about something like that?
Right?
That's unconscionable.
Yeah, right. This is the first time, says a Gallup person, this is the first time in Gallup's 4-decade trend that biblical literalism has not surpassed biblical skepticism. So there's actually fewer biblical literalists than there are people who are skeptical of the literal truth of the Bible.
Golly, it doesn't feel that way.
Well, they're noisy.
They are noisy, aren't they?
The literalists are certainly loud.
And getting louder.
They are...
as their numbers dwindle.
They don't like to be quiet. They can scream and shout.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's nice.
And they build arcs. They do all sorts of things. They're very industrious people, these Bible literalists.
To what end, I don't know. They're not...
Who could know?
Yeah. All right, Dan. There is a young Jehovah's Witness being detained.
Oh, no.
In Tajikistan.
Oh! The Tajiks have been touchy about the J-dubs.
Have they?
I don't know.
Well, anyway, he's of age where it is expected for him to serve in the military.
Oh, sure.
And Tajikistan does not have any conscientious objector laws on the books.
Right.
He went to...
And the J-dubs don't play that.
The J-dubs, they do pay their taxes, but that's kind of where it stops as far as like dealing with a country. They refused to serve in the military. They won't take any like pledges or anything like that. It's God only. But they render unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
Sure.
Right. Like they have that little out. Thank God that's in the Bible.
Right.
Otherwise they'd be tax evaders as well. And anywho, no conscientious objector law in the books. And so when he asked if he could do maybe some public service type thing instead, they were like, nope, you are conscripted. Here you go. Military service or jail time. And so now the UN is getting involved.
Because he chose jail.
He chose jail.
Okay.
And so there is this thing called the Working Group on Arbitrary Detention at the UN. And they are objecting to the mandatory military service.
Huh.
And they are calling this arbitrary detention.
That's interesting. Because it ain't arbitrary.
Because
it's very specific.
Well, I believe there is an understanding internationally amongst sort of human rights folk that one should be able to conscientiously object to military service.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this is probably being based on.
I mean, if there's a better reason to join the J-dubs, I can't think of it. Just getting out of mandatory military service, that sounds great.
So anyway, but it does raise an interesting question, you know?
Yeah.
Because like, really...
Can't he have what was it? What was Trump's excuse? Bone spurs in his shins or whatever? That's how...
Is that...
Trump dodged the draft?
Oh, like could he have something physically wrong with him to get?
Yeah, he just needs to pay a doctor enough money to like say, "Oh, he's got high arches, he can't."
Well, I would think that if high arches can get you out of the military, why not something screwy up in your head that lets you believe the whole J-dub thing?
Right?
Like that should be enough.
I have the mental illness known as Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Declare Jehovah's Witnessism. Mental illness.
An incapacity.
I wouldn't have an objection to that. But no, it raises this question. Like, in my head, I'm like, well, okay, yeah, he should, I guess, be able to conscientiously object. Of course he should be able to. But then it gets all messy because he's a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
And he's doing it because of some weird God thing. So
there you go.
That's that.
All
it's
right.
happening.
Indeed. I'm going to take us to Papua New Guinea now.
Oh?
Where there's been an uptick, a surge in the killing of witches.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, witches are bad.
Well,
They're a plague, Dan. They cause lots of social problems.
I can't believe I didn't take a Halloween angle with this. Today for us is Halloween.
Yeah, our listeners won't be hearing it on Halloween.
No.
I won't have time today to post it.
Nope. But it is but yes, witches are apparently a big problem over there in New Guinea.
Okay, so people are killing them. Apparently, what's happening is that, like in a lot of these villages or whatever, you get some death in the village or a sickness in the village, and everybody feels very upset. Okay,
as you do.
Oh yeah.
And then they just pick some scapegoat woman and kill her. Well, they torture her first. Here's how this works. There's
a process. There's a very well-defined.
Because here's the trick: a witch is going to lie to you. If you just ask her nicely, "Hey, did you curse that person and make them sick and then die?" They'll say no, because they're liars. So what you got to do is torture them until they say yes, because under torture they'll finally tell the truth.
Right.
And then you can just kill them. And then that solves your problem. Nobody will ever get sick and die in your village again.
Well, until there's another witch.
Well, yeah.
And one must then repeat the process.
Right. It's a very important thing. Never mind the fact, of course, that as we've all learned from Gitmo and from all sorts of other things, people who are being tortured will say pretty much anything that you tell them to say.
Oh, yeah.
People don't like being tortured.
No.
They want that to stop.
Right.
That's how torture works. You don't get good information out of torture victims.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, especially if you're just cruelly torturing people.
Oh, God, it's awful.
So yeah, that's there is a task force, a government entity that's working, a response team that's working to help with this. They are so woefully underfunded that they don't really do anything. So there's really effectively nothing on the ground happening to prevent this.
Yeah.
They need Jesus is what they need.
Right.
No, they need strangely, one of the things that they think they might need is social media. Because if they're exposed to more of the outside world, if they're able to talk to each other. Now, I've seen social media work in the wrong direction in terms of like whipping people up to believe crazy beliefs.
Yeah.
But they seem to, I mean, when you're that backwards, maybe we need to just help you catch up to the 20th century. Maybe we don't need to bring you into the 21st yet. We're only 20 years, we're only almost 20 years into that.
Right. No. Hashtag kill all witches.
Hashtag, yes. Good Lord.
But no, I wanted to actually, is there any sense of like how they identify the witch?
Yeah, she looks weird. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a sense of that.
My guess is, these are probably smaller communities, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is something
Although it is expanding into cities now.
Jesus
it used
Christ.
to be a problem that was just in these sort of remote rural villages.
Right, but then how do you've known these people your whole life.
Yeah.
Right? How do you like turn on the one over there?
You haven't read Arthur Miller. You need to get your the Crucible.
Yeah, it's
up and
true.
running.
It's pretty true.
I mean, it's the same thing all over, right? This happens until we continually enlighten ourselves. This will continue to happen. And it still happens. I mean, in this country, it's not witches now. It's, it's Jews or black people or Antifa or whatever. Like, it just happens. Somebody other than me is the problem with our country, with my community, and we'll be actually talking about that a little later too.
Later on.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Dan.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, we few weeks ago at this point, we talked about Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Allowing women to drive vehicles.
Outrageous.
Yes.
I won't allow it, but they will, apparently, someday.
They're going to. It's happening.
Next year.
The women are learning to drive at the moment. But there are other things that Saudi Arabia is going to start allowing women to do.
Really?
Including attending sporting events in stadiums.
Oh.
This has been not allowed. This is a realm of men.
Yeah.
Athletics. Realm of men.
Go see the big athletic events.
Probably soccer.
I would imagine so. Cricket, maybe?
Maybe.
Who are there?
Possible.
Goat head polo. Whatever they're doing.
I don't know if that's a thing, Dan.
I'm pretty sure it is.
But they will begin to accommodate families in 3 stadiums in Riyadh, Jeddah, and Daman.
Okay.
I wonder about Jeddah, though. Are they going to allow them to... Anyway. I know it was destroyed and all that, but 2 of the stadiums actually are the largest stadiums in the country.
Okay.
The 2 largest. And so this is a big deal. And they think that there's probably just going to be like a section where women and children are allowed to go and watch
and
separate
it will be
from the men.
Separate from
but
the men.
they will be in the stadium. Because this is kind of how they tend to do it, I guess, in like public parks, buses, beaches, amusement parks. They have this one space, but then they segregate it. Women over here.
Thank
men
goodness,
over there.
because the worst thing in the world is, you're attending a sporting event and you've got women around.
Yeah.
So at least if they're going to be there, at least they're going to be cordoned off to their
separate. Yeah. However, this has spawned some outrage on social media. Social media again coming up. There has been a hashtag that, if translated from Arabic, it means would you agree to marry a girl who enters stadiums? So that's been
that's a tough call.
Boy, I know
those sports sluts. Boy, man.
Well, they're really good at creating hashtags.
Yes,
over there, because that's a lot.
That's a solid
into that.
That's a solid hashtag right there.
Apparently, though, this is all coming as the Crown Prince, who is seen as somebody who's going to work really hard to modernize and create
He's
a more
a reformer,
moderate.
this guy.
Create a more moderate Saudi Arabia. He has his 2030 project, which is working to increase the number of women in the workplace from 22% up to 30%.
Oh.
They're also announcing a new city that they're building.
Oh, yeah.
They're dedicating like $500 billion or something like that to start work on this city that's going to be in kind of a politically separate region of Saudi Arabia somehow. I don't know exactly what that means or how that works out, but like the videos that are promoting this project show women and men in the workplace together. The women are not wearing hijabs. Apparently there was a woman jogging in a sports bra.
Wow.
At one point. That just shows what a Western infidel I am. I watched the video. I didn't even notice that there was a woman in a sports bra. It didn't even occur to me that'd be weird. I did kind of notice the workplace stuff and thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But the sports bra just ran right by.
I'm telling you, this guy sees the writing on the wall. This is the sort of the theory behind Dubai as well, which is build a new city, a brand new modern city, sort of from the ground up.
Yeah.
Start from zero and go to ultra modern.
Right.
And then make it a place where international people can do business.
Right.
Because all of the money in that region comes from oil right now.
Right.
And oil's going away. So oil's not going to be
But
big thing.
they're taking this city, not to get too tied up in this little sidetrack or whatnot, but they're taking this city actually a step further. It's going to be fueled by renewable energy.
Wow.
There was something about even like cars. It's not going to be like a car-centric city. They want it to be very focused on public transit and blah blah blah. So they've completely done away with the whole women driving cars issue.
Right.
They got rid of that one.
Now it's robots.
Driving
All
cars.
male robots driving the cars.
Yeah, indeed. And then there's a Princess Rima Bandar bint Al Saud, who she also is a reformer. She's involved heavily in sort of the athletics movement, get women into athletics. She was educated in the West. She went to George Washington University, I think is what it said. And or maybe it was Georgetown. One of those Washington ones. It was somewhere over there. But anyway, she says, the decision warms the hearts of the nation's women. Congratulations to us.
Yes, indeed. Well, and yeah, if you want to get people interested in sport, they have to play and they have to be able to watch.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's interesting.
Very interesting.
All right, Saudi. Slow but sure progress into the 1950s.
Well, they have no choice.
They really don't. I mean, they want to play on the international stage.
Yeah.
And the rest of us done accepted the lady folk.
Right.
At least there's still a ways to go. But
they've got so far to go.
Well, even for us, there's still a ways to go.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of like...
We're not perfect.
No.
Nobody's perfect, Dan.
Well, Jesus is.
Oh.
Hey, so have you heard of this Mike Pence feller?
Oh, Jesus.
Vice President of these United States and Christian little lapdog of the Cheeto-in-Chief. He is being sent by our president into the Middle East.
Oh, no.
To deal with a real problem.
Oh, no.
And that is the problem of persecuted Christians.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
By the way, Mike Pence will finally meet actual persecuted Christians.
For the first time in his life.
He thinks he's met persecuted Christians before. He believes he understands that problem. He'll actually meet some real persecuted Christians. I think that's great. He'll still believe that we have them here,
right?
Which we don't. But at least now he's actually meeting real, honest-to-God, persecuted Christians.
Well, the real problem, though, is like, okay, great. He gets to meet some real ones. The problem is the way that gets spun in his head, which is it's a cautionary tale of what could happen here.
Right.
And what is happening here.
And
right.
And like, I'll give you a quote that sort of demonstrates how laughable this whole thing is.
Oh, boy. All right.
And I had to. You have to catch it. You have to catch what makes this quote problematic. This is Pence talking at a keynote speech delivered at the In Defense of Christians annual solidarity dinner for Christians in the Middle East.
Okay,
but they don't say in defense of Middle Eastern Christians.
No, just all Christians.
Mm-hmm. Boy,
Christians everywhere.
They really need defending.
Under attack.
There's only billions of them. So,
yeah.
One of the messages that I will bring on the president's behalf to the leaders across the region is that now is the time to bring an end to the persecution of Christians and all religious minorities. Now, the problem with that is...
Really?
Our president? Is he really interested in protecting religious minorities? Because, have you heard him talk about Islam? That's a religious minority here. Maybe it's just that they're interested in religious minorities elsewhere. In other places.
Well, right. I mean, we only go after the baddies. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we're not persecuting Islam because it's some great thing.
Right.
It's an international threat, Dan.
It is. Islam, as on the whole, as a complete unit.
Yes.
Islam,
Yeah,
and any country that is majority Islamic is a problem.
Yeah, well, and the individuals who come here, clearly agents for radical Islam.
I don't know how anyone could deny that. Pence complained. He said Christians. Here's the thing. So they're also pulling money from that the U.S. has been giving to the UN to combat the persecution of Christians, and we are going to do it our damn selves.
Oh,
so they're redirecting that money to U.S.-based groups, including some government groups and some faith-based groups. They're basically just giving the money to some churches. But apparently, so this is another Pence quote, too often that the UN has too often failed to help the most vulnerable communities, especially religious minorities. From this day forward, America will provide support directly to persecuted communities. So there you go. Our fellow Christians.
Right.
Meaning, obviously, the U.S. is all Christians.
Right.
So we're protecting...
It's a Christian nation, Dan.
...our fellow Christians. And all who are persecuted in the Middle East should not have to rely on multinational institutions when America can help them directly. How about helping your religious minorities here in our own country where we suck at how we treat our religious minorities?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but Dan, the problem is our religious minorities aren't Christian.
Right.
So
that is a very good point.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
If our religious minorities were Christian, then we would be helping them out.
Then we would be able to help them.
Right.
But our religious minorities are those icky ones.
The ones that don't matter.
The yucky ones.
The wrong ones.
Yeah, they're all like weird and they wear funny hats and you don't know what they're doing and maybe they have a beard. And you don't know.
Maybe.
You don't know. They're brown a lot of the time. It's very upsetting.
And they have these eyes. You can just tell that they're plotting against you.
Just whenever they look at you, it's like they don't trust you.
And and the whole language is just based in war tactics.
And gobbledygook. It doesn't even make any sense.
It's just a mess.
It's just a mess.
Yeah.
Mike Pence. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you have anything you'd like to say about any of the things that we've talked about today, you can let us know. Write to us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or you can call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yes, indeed. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist.
And while on Facebook, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It is a closed group, but we'll let you in.
Also, don't forget that we are doing the video thing, so you can go to youtube.com/TGIAtheist and see what color my shoes are this week.
Hey, Dan.
Yes, sir.
You're a big fan of listening to things, right?
Oh my goodness! If I didn't listen to things, I wouldn't know what my ears were for.
That's so dumb. Well, anyway, one of our favorite people to listen to, that nice Brian Fisher. Well, by nice, I don't mean nice.
No,
I mean,
he's not nice at all.
Wretched human being, Brian Fisher.
Although he's got that lovely tuft of shock white hair on top.
I'm jealous of that hair. I am jealous of that hair. I so want to just Anderson Cooper the whole thing at this point.
Yeah, not exactly a silver fox, though. I won't go that far with Brian, with B-Fish. I will say this. He starts by listening to someone who's calling into his show who sounded too reasonable. Something had to go wrong.
All right, let's listen.
So I'm an evangelical Christian, and I'm worried about the future of religious liberty. I feel an obligation to defend Sikhs and to defend Muslims on why we believe in principled pluralism in America. And so you can't have people running for office. And again, I don't know the particulars of what Moore has said, but as it's been reported, you can't have people running for office saying that being a Muslim would be a disqualification for being in Congress. The Constitution is pretty clear about not having religious litmus tests.
Now, Ben Sass, I'm sorry to say, is just uninformed about this, as are most Americans, as are most lawyers, as are most legal professors. because the Constitution in Article 6 does prohibit a religious test for federal office. This is exactly true. But what people do not understand is that what the founders meant by religion specifically was Christianity. What Joseph Story said in his monumental commentaries on the Constitution, in the First Amendment, Congress was dealing only with Christianity. So for them, religion was Christianity. So when it says there can be no religious test in Article 6, you can't have a Christian religious test that everybody has to pass in order to be eligible for federal office. It doesn't say a single solitary thing about Islam because the Congress wasn't even dealing with the topic of Islam when they were putting the Constitution together. And I believe Muslims can and should be excluded from Congress for the same reason that communists can and should be and legally are, because they believe in a totalitarian system, totalitarian ideology.
Oh, dear God.
I just like that Brian Fisher is finally setting the record straight, because we have been hearing from all those crazies who are teaching law and practicing law and all the people who understand the law.
And history.
We've been hearing the wrong thing. He knows the answer.
Thank God.
All of the people, all of the American people and all the people who practice law and all of the people who teach the law have got the law wrong.
And you know what's...
They don't know what they're talking about.
No, I know. And you know what? I don't know. I don't fully 100% mean this, but I'm so sick and tired of the U.S. Constitution. Like, I'm just so tired of it. Like, I'm tired of everybody, like, feeling like whatever, like, trying to parse out all these little... It's almost like a religious obsession with, like, the Bible. It's the same thing about the Constitution. It's having to, like, hang on every single word,
right,
and trying to figure out the deeper meaning and this and that. And it's like, well, and fuck that shit.
And the original intention of
original
the founding fathers.
Who cares?
It
At
means
the end of the day,
nothing.
What matters today is our lives today and what it means to live a good life today. Right. Because society has evolved as society had evolved to that point when they wrote that document.
Right. And if the founding fathers, and that's another term that I'm getting done with.
You can say founders.
If the founders, if the authors of our and signatories of our Constitution,
right,
had intended for it to remain a stopped in time frozen document, right, they wouldn't have created mechanisms to change it.
Right, exactly.
Like they didn't want us to think about what their original intent was. They wanted us to change it when it needed to be changed.
Right.
And fix it when it needed to be fixed.
It's politically impossible to change.
Yeah.
At least right now.
At least at this point in history.
Yeah. I mean, it has been changed in the past. Thank God, or else we'd still have slaves.
Right. Or, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, such a wonderful document.
Yeah.
So perfect.
All that slavery stuff, that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a ridiculous argument. And at least 3 of our current Supreme Court justices are originalists.
I know. It's fucking mind-boggling.
But what they don't understand, and what the other people don't understand, and what Brian Fisher doesn't understand, is that my interpretation of the Constitution is more important than all of them. So,
right. He's such a scholar. Brian Fisher. Seriously, thank you for Brian Fisher.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's a treat. I'll read an email if that sounds fun.
Sure.
This one was unsigned, but it says, I thought it was kind of fun. In the tradition of Mormons being baptized in the name of non-Mormons, I am planning on going on a binge of various atheist podcasts in the name of Mormon President Thomas Monson in order to commend his soul to atheism. My friend is planning to get totally wasted in the name of Thomas Monson in order to initiate him into the cult of Sekhmet.
Oh.
Sekhmet is an Egyptian goddess that we talked about a little bit on the How to Heretic.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you can check that episode out if you want to learn more about Sekhmet, who drunkenness is how you worship her.
Fantastic.
Will one of these, quote, baptism rituals override the other? Will Monson's soul become atheist, or will it become a servant of Sekhmet, Or is it just the last ritual performed that supersedes all previous baptisms?
Oh, wonderful.
So that's a very good question.
Yeah.
Relating to Mormon theology. Which is funny because I really like the second option of like whoever does the last ritual for a person wins.
Right.
Because then every time the Mormons do a baptism for the dead, somebody could swoop in and be like, ha, well, I get him. Nope, we're doing Catholic instead. We got him.
Right.
But unfortunately, that's not how Mormonism works. First of all, Thomas Monson, in all the sort of legal definitions, is still alive. You're supposed to wait until he's dead.
Yeah, that's true.
Or maybe do it for Joseph Smith or Brigham Young or something.
I mean,
because they've got to be dead for this to work.
yeah.
First of all, for the spell casting to actually...
Joseph Smith, that would be outrageous.
Yeah, although both Joseph Smith and Brigham Young were drinkers. So maybe pick somebody later. Pick David O. McKay. Do all of this for David O. McKay. He was a prophet of the church.
Spencer W. Kimball was special as well.
Yeah,
So
sure.
Could do it for him.
Any of them. I think do all of the above, but I can't tell you which one will take precedent over the other. According to Mormon theology, at least the way I was taught, then the person has to accept these things in the afterlife.
So they'll have multiple options.
Right.
You should give them options.
And mind you, if they are in the afterlife and they accept atheism, that seems a little weird. Because if you're able to accept something in the afterlife, and there is an afterlife, one would think, oh, maybe atheism wasn't correct.
Well,
or maybe there's just something
no God.
we don't know about. Yeah,
still no God. Just an afterlife.
A next thing.
Something else.
That's right.
I don't think that's tough. That's challenging.
It's tricky. Who knows?
It's probably easier to believe in God and no afterlife than it is to believe in an afterlife and no God. But people believe all sorts of crazy shit.
Sure.
So
who knows? Maybe we'll be reincarnated as a fish. You never can tell.
Yeah, I know. Reincarnation's weird.
Do we have a voicemail to listen to?
We do,
Dan.
Okay. This is in response to our little segment last week at the end of the show where we were talking about some bad medicine out there in the world. Bad people getting duped into various different questionable kinds of treatment, like these unproven, untried stem cells treatments,
right.
or
any
of
science sounding quackery.
Exactly, right. And so here's somebody who has a little bit to say on that.
Okay.
Hey guys, I'm jumping in to play Crazy's Advocate on the, you guys were talking about the alternative medicine stuff on the last episode. And, people's distrust of the pharmacy industry, it's not totally unfounded. Just this week, our Cheeto-in-Chief himself said opioids are a major crisis, and they absolutely are. They're destroying communities because it's cheaper and easier for everyone involved except the patient to just subscribe people pills and send them away. We've also seen this happen famously with Ritalin, which one of you guys may be familiar with, or your kids, or your nieces or nephews. It's affected lots of people, and there were tons of side effects that no one knew about and no one cared about at the time because it made money. It was convenient. So even though I'm not saying we should go have apple cider vinegar and lemons for breakfast, the people who are saying that the system isn't perfect, they kind of have a point, even if their solution is a little out to lunch. Bye.
Well, thank you for the call. Not a bad point. Not something that should be ignored.
Well, yeah. I mean, so I don't think that our point was ever that the medical system, especially in the United States, is perfect.
Oh dear God, no.
I think that was never our point. Also, I'm just going to point out, I'm just going to cop to the fact that I think I used the term Cheeto-in-Chief earlier in the show. I think I may have stolen it from that caller.
Oh, no way.
I think when we listened to that before.
Oh dear God.
That's why it was in my mind. So I'm going to give credit
where credit is due.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think for me the problem with demonizing big pharma, right?
Yeah,
is that you start to question all pharmaceuticals.
Right.
And when any ailment comes up, when any element comes up, you end up questioning whatever and distrusting whatever pharmaceutical that might be prescribed to you.
Yeah.
And while it's always good to have questions and to not just take everything that your doctor says at face value.
Sure.
And do your own research. But I think what is scary, and it's what she alludes to or mentions outright, is when people start trying to find alternatives that are just crazy.
Right.
And such as
the thing is,
vinegar and whatnot to treat cancer.
And the idea is that, when you see a problem like opioid addiction,
mm-hmm.
and that is a national problem.
Yeah. Huge problem.
The solution isn't opioids are inherently and always bad.
Right.
That's not the solution to this.
Right.
And it's also not to say, oh, that must mean since we have an opioid addiction problem, that must mean that doctors who prescribe opioids are bad, that opioids themselves are bad,
right.
that the manufacturers of opioids are bad. Like, that's not how this works.
Right.
Yes, opioids may have been wildly overprescribed.
And they were.
And so doctors are now starting to prescribe them less. And,
right.
and they're trying to find a balance where some
mm-hmm.
people who desperately need that help can have it.
Right.
And the people, but they do it in a way that they hope will stem the tide of addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the idea isn't throw all the baby out with the bathwater. The idea is find problems, name them in the
mm-hmm.
system, and then fix them.
Right.
Not, the system has had a problem, throw away the system.
Well, and what's also of concern with this opioid problem is really how long it did take for the entire system to recognize the extent of the problem,
right,
and to change their ways. It is seriously taking a national crisis in order for there to be a response. Well, and that is a problem.
And there are also
failure.
There are huge problems with the pharmaceutical industry being financially motivated.
Yeah,
that is a problem because it means that the makers of these opioids are pushing doctors to prescribe them and are lobbying Congress to write laws that are pro-opioid and are, making sure that they're. And now, when we're trying to fix the problem, the manufacturer of these opioids are, lobbying so hard that now, President Trump's solution to the opioid problem is an ad campaign. Well, guess what? That's not a solution to this problem at all.
Not. Thanks, Nancy Reagan. Nancy Reagan taught us one thing.
Right.
If she taught us one thing, it's that your ad campaign is not going to work.
She said, just say no. Just say no. And now Trump has said, it's super easy to just not start taking them.
Right.
Because apparently Trump's never been in that much pain.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's dumb. But I think that the larger thought has to be, maybe don't abandon modern medicine. Acknowledge that there are problems with it.
Uh-huh.
Sure, great. Right. And let's work to fix those problems. But it's still the best thing we've got.
Yes.
It's 1,000% better than all, your Ayurveda provider
mm-hmm.
knows zero compared to what the wealth of knowledge that we've gained from this wildly imperfect modern medicine system.
Absolutely. All right.
So I do want to talk briefly about us and how we are able to do this show.
Indeed.
Because it's not easy. We put in a lot of time and effort, and so one of the things that makes it possible is when people decide that it is of value to them and choose to give us a little bit of money for the episodes,
right?
And that it's this amazing thing, and we're super grateful every time anyone does it. But I just like to remind folks that it would be super duper sweet if they would participate in that.
Yeah.
And if you listen and if you find value in what we do, and you want to take a little pride in being part of that,
Yeah.
you can go to thankgodimatheist.com, and you can click on the support tab. You can click on the Patreon button.
Mm-hmm.
That'll take you to Patreon, which is where you sign up. You choose your level of support. It can be, it can be as low or as high as you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just you just agree to give us a little bit per episode that we produce for you.
Yeah.
And then you're one of our golden people who helps us out with that.
Yes.
The top of which
Continues to be
and is
she reigns supreme
as Lord and Savior of the entire TGIA universe, Angela. Saint Angela, Lord and Savior, Lord Angela. She is supreme. And we bless you all in Angela's name. Amen.
Amen. Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
So we teased something at the beginning of the show about this whole... what's the best way to describe it? It's
here's what I feel.
having an appropriate space for religion.
Sure. I think what happened was you and I were sort of looking at stories for the week, and we realized that we had some stories that sort of told an interesting story when you correlate them about the concept of where secular society or where non-religious affiliated society,
Right.
meaning society at large, like everybody can be a part of a religion, but we all have to sort of decide how much of our public space we allow for individual practice of religion and where we draw lines.
Right.
Because I found a story that was about it took place in New Jersey. There's just sort of across the river from New York City, and there was a park that was right next to the train station. And apparently what had been happening was that Orthodox Jews had been taking the train from the city to this park,
Okay.
and essentially taken over.
Really?
To the point where they were like there were a lot of them there, and they were putting up what are they called? The sort of the wire system that makes it all part of their home for
for the Sabbath?
For the Sabbath.
Yeah, I don't know what that's called.
Foods or I've got it here somewhere.
No, I've heard of that though.
Yeah, Eruv, ERUV, Eruv. So they had put up these Eruv around this park.
Okay.
So that they could push a stroller on the Sabbath and stuff, which they're not allowed to do except at home.
Right.
And their workaround for at home is they'll attach these PVC pipes to telephone poles or whatever,
Right.
with lines going across and stuff. It's stupid and it's weird.
God,
But this little town in New Jersey, which is called Mahwah, Mahwah, passed a law that said basically, so they basically passed a law that said nobody from out of state can go to the parks.
okay.
They claimed it was because a lot of New York license plates were showing up and making it hard to park and all this other stuff. It was very clearly just to keep out these Orthodox Jews.
Wow.
Who were sort of taking over, and they're not from the town.
Right.
And the town was just like, well, we want our parks. Blah, blah, blah.
So how are they getting the wire out there?
I don't know. I don't know how it works, to be perfectly honest with you. It's all very strange. But yeah, they're attaching PVC to poles, and and so they passed this law that said that, and the law also said something about basically they sort of incorporated attaching these PVC pipes to lampposts as part of like you can't like there was already an ordinance that was like no signs on trees and no sign. You can't like attach a sign to a pole or whatever.
Okay. All right.
So they just made that part. They just looped that into the Eruv thing into the thing. And you and I have both watched. There's an incredible Netflix documentary about the Hasidic Jews.
One of us,
and it's in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a problem when any fundamentalist religious group, and we certainly know about this in Utah, when they take over a community,
and dominate it,
and then start controlling everything that happens in that community.
Yes,
and when it's fundamentalist religion that does it, they keep everybody quiet. They operate outside of legal parameters. So if something happens, if somebody wrongs someone else, they don't go through legal channels. They go through internal religious channels to try and solve the dispute.
Right, which are usually slimy and dirty and
or it's just the wrong way to handle it.
Right.
And there are then when something criminal happens, and it needs to be a problem of the state, especially if children are involved. If someone's beating children, the state needs to get involved, but they don't go to the state; they go to their ecclesiastical leaders. So the question is, where do we draw that line as a society? And that becomes a really tricky one.
It does become tricky. And so let's go to the opposite side of everything.
Okay.
Real quick. Because the Chinese, which is where I want to go, would handle things very differently.
Yeah, that's kind of bizarro America.
Because
it's the upside down, literally, of America.
Communist China is not officially atheist. They do recognize, well, I guess probably officially they are atheists, but they do allow for some religions to operate, including Catholicism, Islam, Protestantism, Buddhism, Taoism. There's probably a couple others, but that's what's on this list right here. But in order to be like a member of the Communist Party, you have to subscribe to, Marxist atheism, and you cannot in any way, shape, or form sort of structure your belief system, your ethical system, whatever, on any kind of like religious belief.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to, right?
Yeah.
And so what you get is now the president of China, Xi Jinping. He is actually calling for all the religions in China to be Sinicized or made to be more Chinese, right?
Interesting.
By instilling socialist values into those religions.
Okay.
And they actually want to continue their control over these religious groups. And it's causing some interesting things. For example, it was compared to almost like a black market of religious practice, right? Churches are sort of leaving any kind of public space and they're going into the home.
Right.
And so people will have their meetings in someone's home. They're very small meetings. And so they're pushing it into this very hard to see sphere, right? Because people who really truly do need that kind of thing in their life for whatever reason, they were going to. Yeah. They're going to find it, right? But there's something so enviable about a country that's just like, fuck it.
I mean, for people like us who like have to sort of get used to certain places where if you go walking, you're going to have somebody screaming about Jesus at you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. the idea that like your religion is to be practiced in private,
Right.
with your own, do your thing away from us. Like, just keep it to yourself. And that would be, that does sound
But this is
almost
obviously
utopian.
clearly not, however.
It's clearly not utopian, right? It's wildly repressive and
Exactly.
and probably will breed like it foments like a distrust of the government and anger at the government and resentment,
Absolutely.
and actually keeps people feeling like they are disenfranchised, and that they are not, that it. So that's not healthy for society.
No,
that
I don't think so.
disenfranchisement is absolutely unhealthy for a working modern society.
But we in this country, in theory, go the exact opposite direction, right? And,
Right.
And in a lot of places, in practice, are in a very opposite direction.
Meaning we enfranchise the religious and disenfranchise the non-religious.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I think our show would not get any traction if this country enfranchised the non-religious.
Right.
But we don't. Our country is very hostile to the non-religious.
Yeah.
So yeah, even though it's the fastest growing segment in the country or whatever.
Right.
We'll see. Progress may put us out of business, Frank.
Better not.
But yeah, I mean,
I rely on this show.
Anyway, I think that I think that it's an interesting question. The question, Saudi Arabia's, we talked about that earlier, how they're wrestling with this idea of religious practice and where, because it used to be, we talked about this earlier, it used to be that in Saudi Arabia, the religious police could arrest you.
Yeah.
And Saudi has stopped that, sort of quietly made it so that the religious police have a little less power.
Yeah.
Though, still, I'm sure that they can hassle the shit out of a woman who's not wearing a hijab or who's somehow they deem to be, who's out in the wrong way.
Right.
Either not with her husband or with, there's plenty of ways that they'll still harass people who aren't conforming to their religious norms.
Right.
But I think one of the sort of interesting tasks of our time is to ask questions about where it is safe and healthy to draw the lines for how we as a society for allow religion to be practiced.
Yeah.
Because we have to draw lines. Because religions break laws.
Yeah.
And we can't really allow that.
No.
If a religious cult pops up that, has some sort of human sacrificial element to it, or even the ones that, should we allow the Hasidic Jews in New York to do the caparot and kill the chickens in the street?
No.
That's just
Should not be allowed.
unsanitary,
Yeah.
if nothing else.
Right.
But when they've got such control over an area,
Right.
that's, or in that documentary that we saw, that there's a woman who's accuses her husband of being abusive to her and her children.
Right.
But the court gives full custody to the father, who was theoretically abusive.
Right.
Because the community rallied around him and paid for incredibly impressive lawyers.
Right.
And B, in this country, family law favors the religious over the non-religious, and she had left the church. And I think that that's just a problem in our society, where religion is favored over non-religion.
Right. Yep.
I feel like we don't
Crazy.
have any answers in this.
Lots of questions. That's
Just
all we have.
questions. So maybe some of our listeners and
maybe.
viewers have some
knows?
answers.
can say?
And if you do, if you have insights into a lot of this stuff, write into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com,
Or you could call and leave us a voicemail message. We do love to hear your voice. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
That's right. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist, and click that like button.
And while you're on Facebook, why not join the Members Only Lounge? It's an awesome community of like-minded people who have lots to say, and it's
super supportive.
And it protects your identity, if that's an important thing to you.
Yes, indeed. Speaking of Facebook, thanks so much to Mackenzie for running the Facebook page. It's amazing all the things that she does. And thanks also to Sarah, Danny, and Amy for their work as moderators in the Members Only Lounge.
And thanks go out to the Red Rock Hot Club and Gordon Johnston for the use of their music.
Yep. And thank you, dear listener and viewer, for tuning in.
Bye!